My parents did not finance my college education because of my golden sister. 10 years later, they wrote to me to give them $200,000. I was born and raised in the quiet town of Elmswood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. Our modest two-story house stood on Maple Street, a place where memories were etched into every creaking floorboard in faded wallpaper. My parents, Harold and Lorraine Whitaker, were pillars of the community, known for their dedication to the local diner they owned, Whitaker's Eatery. The diner wasn't just a place to grab a meal, it was the heart of Elmswood, where stories were shared over coffee and pancakes. Growing up, it was just the three of us until my younger sister, Felicity, came along. She was the golden child, the apple of everyone's eye. With her curly auburn hair and infectious laughter, Felicity had a way of drawing people in. From a young age, it was evident that she was destined for greatness, or so everyone believed. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one. I found solace in books and spent countless hours in the attic, lost in worlds crafted by authors who seemed to understand me better than my own family. While Felicity was praised for her performances in school plays and her leadership in student council, my achievements often went unnoticed. I remember winning first place in the regional science fair, only to have my parents miss the award ceremony because they were attending one of Felicity's recitals. "You're so smart, Ilara," my grandmother, Mabel, would often tell me, her wrinkled hands gently patting mine. "Don't let anyone dim your light." Grandma Mabel was my sanctuary. Her small cottage on the outskirts of town was filled with the scent of lavender and the soft hum of jazz records playing in the background. She believed in me when no one else did, encouraging my dreams of becoming an environmental scientist. As high school drew to a close, I began researching colleges, eager to pursue my passion. I was accepted into the prestigious Greenfield University, known for its environmental science program. Excitedly, I shared the news with my parents, hoping for a glimmer of support. "Ilara, that's wonderful," my mother said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "But have you considered the costs? College is expensive, and we have to think about Felicity's future too." "But I've been saving, and there are scholarships," I protested. My father chimed in, "Perhaps it's best to look into community colleges nearby. That way, you can work part-time at the diner and help out." Disheartened, I turned to Grandma Mabel. Without hesitation, she offered to co-sign a student loan and even contributed a portion of her savings to help with tuition. With her support, I embarked on my college journey, determined to make her proud. College was a whirlwind of lectures, research projects, and late-night study sessions. I thrived in the academic environment, earning accolades and forming lasting friendships. I kept in touch with Grandma Mabel, sending her postcards and calling her every Sunday. My parents and Felicity, however, rarely reached out. Upon graduation, I secured a position with Ecotech Solutions, a company dedicated to sustainable environmental practices. The job took me to various parts of the country, allowing me to apply my knowledge and make a tangible difference. Years passed, and I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Ilara, Felicity is getting married," she announced. "We're planning a grand wedding at the Elmswood Country Club." "That's great news," I replied, genuinely happy for my sister. "We were hoping you could contribute financially," she continued. "The total cost is around $200,000, and we're asking family members to pitch in." I was taken aback. "You want me to help pay for Felicity's wedding?" "Yes, dear. You've done well for yourself, and it's only fair to support family." I couldn't believe the audacity. The same parents who couldn't spare a dime for my education were now expecting me to fund a lavish wedding. "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that," I said firmly. The conversation ended abruptly, leaving me with a mix of anger and sadness. I realized that no matter how much I achieved, I would always be second to Felicity in their eyes. Determined not to let their actions define me, I focused on my career, eventually starting my own environmental consultancy firm. The business flourished, and I made it a point to mentor young women pursuing careers in science, hoping to be the support system I once lacked. One day, I received a letter from Felicity. "Dear Ilara, I know things have been strained between us, but I wanted to apologize. I was blind to the favoritism and the hurt it caused you. Your accomplishments are incredible, and I admire your strength and resilience. Love. Felicity." Reading her words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Perhaps healing was possible after all. After Felicity's letter, a cautious quiet settled between us. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet. But it was a beginning, a spark of something that had never truly existed between us before, understanding. I didn't respond right away. I needed time. Time to feel whether her words were genuine, or just another performance in the long-running theater of our family. Instead, I immersed myself in the world I had built. My consultancy, Green Root Advisors, had grown from a side passion into a reputable firm with contracts across several states. We specialized in corporate sustainability transitions, helping businesses reduce their environmental footprints while still thriving economically. It was work I believed in, the kind of work I had dreamed of doing as a teenager while folding napkins in the back room of my parents' diner. Despite my success, I remained anchored by humility. I didn't own a mansion, nor did I drive a luxury car. My apartment in a renovated building downtown was airy and sunlit, filled with books and potted plants. The walls bore photographs of national parks, old Polaroids with Grandma Mabel, and notes from men who'd gone on to earn degrees they once thought were out of reach. It was a life built on quiet victories, earned inch by inch. It had been nearly a decade since I'd last been inside my parents' house. When Felicity's wedding date was announced in a local paper, a glossy, full-page spread paid for by the Whitakers, I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was the invitation that arrived in the mail shortly after. Thick cardstock, gold embossed lettering, and a handwritten note tucked inside. "Ilara, please come. It would mean the world to me. Love, Felicity." I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Another part, smaller but louder, whispered that closure often comes in unexpected shapes. So I went. The rehearsal dinner was held in the ballroom of the Elmswood Country Club. I walked in alone, wearing a simple navy dress that Mabel had helped me pick out years ago for my first major conference. The room was everything I remembered about Elmswood society: ornate chandeliers, forced laughter, and an air of performative affluence. Felicity greeted me with a hug that was too long, too tight. She looked beautiful, radiant even, in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her fiancé, Wallace, was pleasant in the way men raised among wealth often are: charming, unreadable, and aware of his value. Dinner was awkward. "So, Ilara," my mother began, unfolding her napkin with exaggerated care. "Still working with eco stuff?" "It's called environmental management, Mom," Felicity chimed in, trying to sound knowledgeable. Ilara's firm was featured in the Sustainable Futures Journal last spring. My father gave a slow nod, the kind he reserved for things he neither understood nor cared to. "Well, that's good. Good for you." I smiled tightly. The room felt colder than it was. Their efforts to seem supportive were as transparent as the crystal goblets on the table. Then came the real reason for the invitation. "We wanted to discuss something with you, Ilara," Mom said, glancing at Dad for a cue. "Felicity's wedding is ambitious," he began. "Wallace's family has certain expectations. The guest list has grown, and with the venue and catering. We're over budget," Mom cut in. "Substantially. And we thought, maybe you could help." The words landed like a stone in my stomach. "Help?" I echoed. "We're asking close family to contribute," Felicity added quickly. "Not just you. It's important to Wallace's image and future. It's more than a wedding, it's a statement." I stared at them all, their hopeful eyes, the room full of polished wood and self-importance. "You didn't contribute to my education," I said calmly. "You told me I wasn't worth investing in. And now you want me to fund a wedding I didn't even know I'd be invited to until 2 weeks ago?" "It's different," Mom insisted. "We were in a different financial place back then." "No," I said, my voice firmer now. "You just didn't think I mattered enough." The silence was heavy. "I'm sorry, but no. I won't be contributing. I wish Felicity well, but I won't be paying for a spectacle that has nothing to do with love and everything to do with appearances." I stood up. Felicity reached out for my hand, but I stepped back. "You're still the only family I have," she said, her voice shaking. "Even if they don't always act like it." I looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time in years. And in her eyes, I saw not just pain, but a flicker of regret that felt real. "I hope your wedding is everything you want it to be," I said quietly, then walked out of the ballroom, the echoes of my heels against marble more comforting than any of their apologies. That night, I drove straight to Grandma Mabel's. She was slower now, her silver hair thinner, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She held my hand while I told her everything. "You did the right thing," she said. "Sometimes the only way to protect your peace is to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you." The weeks after the rehearsal dinner unfolded like a quiet storm. There were no follow-up calls from my parents, no notes slipped under my door, no sudden apologies. I hadn't expected any. My refusal to bankroll the wedding had been a statement not just about money, but about worth, and that was something they were never willing to grant me. The town buzzed with whispers, as it always did. Elmswood had a way of wrapping stories in ribbons of half-truths and passing them around like gifts no one asked for. I heard snippets during errands and through acquaintances. They say Ilara's gotten too proud to speak to her own folks, Mrs. Elkins muttered at the farmer's market. She refused to help her sister, can you imagine? After all Harold and Lorraine did for her, someone else said near the church steps. I could have corrected them. Told them about how my tuition plea had been met with laughter and dismissal. How I'd worked 2 jobs, sold my old books, and leaned on my grandmother's goodwill to make my education possible. But I didn't. I'd learned that silence can be stronger than any speech. That peace comes not from being understood, but from being free of needing to explain yourself. Instead, I poured my energy into Green Root Advisors. We expanded into the Midwest, opening our second office in Springfield, where we partnered with local governments to develop urban greening projects. Every tree planted, every corporate footprint reduced, felt like a small rebuke to the voices that once told me I wasn't enough. Then came the storm. Not metaphorical this time, but a literal one. In the late summer, a flood swept through Elmswood after weeks of heavy rain and inadequate drainage. My parents' diner, the pride of their lives, was submerged. The kitchen, booths, and even the hand-carved sign above the door were all destroyed. I saw the damage in the local paper, Harold and Lorraine Whitaker standing in front of a broken window, their faces drawn, their eyes vacant. My heart clenched. Despite everything, that diner had been my childhood's background noise. The place I learned to slice apples with precision. Where the scent of cinnamon rolls clung to my hair long after closing time. 1,000 memories lived within those walls, even if many weren't happy. A week later, I received a letter. Handwritten. From my father. Ilara. We are not good with words. We have never been. But the flood has taken more from us than just bricks and boards. It has taken pride. We never wanted to ask anything from you again, but I find myself writing this anyway. The insurance won't cover the full rebuild. We are out of savings. The bank is hesitating. We need help. Not for the wedding. Not for appearances. Just to stay afloat. I know we failed you. I know we didn't listen when we should have. But please, if you can. Dad. I read it once. Then again. And once more, letting every shaky letter sink in. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I visited the ruins of the diner. It was as haunting as I imagined. The booths I once hid beneath were now damp husks of wood. The kitchen where Mom had taught me how to make cornbread was coated in mud and mildew. But beyond the mess, I saw something else, fragility. The kind that pride could no longer shield. That night, I called Grandma Mabel. They're asking for help, I told her. This time, for survival. Do you want to help them? She asked. I don't know. Part of me does. Part of me feels like this is their consequence. But I also remember what it felt like to ask for help and be told I wasn't worth it. She paused. Ilara, justice isn't always about repayment. Sometimes it's about what you do when you're the one with power. The question is, what do you want your story to be? That question kept me awake for hours. By morning, I had made my decision. I offered a loan, not a gift, but a real, legal agreement. I drew up the terms myself. No interest for the first 3 years, and complete forgiveness if the diner became community-owned after 5. My parents didn't call to argue. They signed and returned the papers without a word. The rebuild began. Slowly, the building came back to life. Local volunteers joined in, curious about the community ownership clause. For the first time, the diner belonged not just to Harold and Lorraine, but to the people who had eaten there for decades. It became something greater than a family business, it became Elmswood's anchor. Months passed. My parents never said thank you. But Felicity did. She visited my office one afternoon, out of the blue. I heard what you did, she said softly. And I'm sorry. That it had to come from you again. I nodded, unsure of what to say. You once told me you wanted to be seen, she continued. I see you now, Ilara. Not just for what you've achieved, but for what you've carried. And how you chose to rise anyway. For the first time in a long while, I felt something shift. A small, unexpected peace. The rebuilt diner, now named Whitaker Commons, opened on a crisp fall morning. Where once my name was left off family dedications and town rosters, it now appeared subtly but unavoidably, etched into the placard by the entrance, revived by the spirit of community in those who believed in its second chance. No fanfare. No speeches. Just a quiet truth. I didn't attend the reopening. Not because I wasn't invited. Felicity had sent me a formal note with a handwritten message inside, but because some things are better watched from afar. Instead, I drove by the next morning, coffee in hand, and watched through the window as families gathered for breakfast. My parents moved between tables, tired but upright, and for once, I saw something different in them, not pride or pretension, but humility. Something hard-earned. Life, meanwhile, was growing fuller. Greenroot had signed a partnership with a regional university to create an internship pipeline for students from underserved communities. It was something I'd dreamed of for years, a chance to not just build but lift. My own mentee, a determined young woman named Nora with a talent for data analytics, had just landed a scholarship through the program. Watching her succeed reminded me of all the days I'd stared out dorm windows, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life by believing I deserved more. I had deserved more. I had made more. One evening, as I watered the ferns in my apartment, Felicity called again. "Ilara," she said, "Mom's birthday is next week. She's asked if we could all have dinner together. Just the four of us." She's been different since the reopening. I was silent for a long moment. "Are you asking as my sister, or as Mom's emissary?" "As your sister," she replied. "Honestly." I sighed. "I'll think about it." The truth was, I had been thinking about it for months. About forgiveness. About memory. About how some wounds scab over without healing, and how others need air and time before they can close. That Sunday, I agreed. The dinner was held at their house. Not the house I grew up in after the flood. They'd sold it and moved into a smaller place near the park. It was strange walking into a home that carried none of the old ghosts. The living room had mismatched furniture. The walls were still bare. And for once, it felt like a place where people lived, not posed. Mom served roast chicken. Dad made cornbread. There was no talk of business or appearances. Just the kind of stilted, awkward conversation that comes when people are trying too hard to be normal. Midway through dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "Ilara," he began, "I read your piece in Sustainable Futures. The one about community-driven models. It was enlightening." I blinked. He'd read something I wrote? "Thank you," I said, unsure of what else to offer. Mom looked at me with the kind of expression I hadn't seen in years, not judgment, not criticism. Something like curiosity. Or awe. "I never knew how much you'd done," she said. I didn't let myself know. I nodded, emotion tight in my throat. "It's not too late to start. We didn't solve decades of hurt that night. But a door opened an inch, perhaps. And for now, that inch was enough." Later, Felicity and I took a walk through the park, the trees heavy with amber leaves. She told me about Wallace's law practice, about how their wedding had left them with more debt than memories. About how sometimes, she wondered what it would have been like to choose something simpler. Something real. "You didn't just build a life, Ilara," she said. "You carved a way through stone." "You could have too," I replied. She looked down. "Maybe. But I'm just glad at least one of us did." We reached the bench near the duck pond, the one Grandma Mabel used to sit on when she visited town. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" Felicity asked. "I think she'd be proud that we finally sat down as sisters," I said. And I meant it. The first snow came early that winter. It blanketed the rooftops of Elmswood, silencing the streets and slowing the hurried pace of the town. I stood by my window, watching flakes swirl like whispers against the glass, feeling the weight of a long journey settle into stillness. My life, which had once felt so fragile, was now marked by rhythm and purpose. Greenroot Advisors had opened its third office, this time in a small coastal town, partnering with marine preservationists to support shoreline resilience. I split my time between projects and mentoring, each call with a student, each handwritten note of thanks, a balm to the part of me that once felt invisible. At night, I often thought of Grandma Mabel. Her portrait now hung in my office, painted from an old photo I kept in my wallet. When things grew difficult, I'd sit beneath her eyes and remember the strength in her silence, the warmth of her support. She hadn't left me wealth or land, but something far more valuable, belief. Felicity called often now. Our conversations were casual, sometimes funny, occasionally difficult. She admitted, bit by bit, the weight she carried, the expectations she never questioned until they became burdens, the realization that perfection was a mask too heavy to wear forever. Wallace was kind, but distant. Her days were filled with fundraising events and formal dinners, but her nights were quiet, filled with second guesses. We didn't trade roles, not really. But the lines that once divided us began to blur into understanding. One weekend, I invited her to speak at a Green Root youth panel. She hesitated, unsure what she could offer, but finally agreed. She spoke not as a banker's wife, not as a socialite, but as someone who had once been told who to be and had spent years trying to find who she really was. Afterward, she looked at me differently. Not with awe or envy, but with something softer. Gratitude, maybe. Or humility. And then came the letter. This one, from my mother. It arrived without ceremony, plain envelope, my name written in steady, careful print. Ilara. You once told me I only ever spoke when I needed something. You were right. But this letter isn't a request. It's an acknowledgement. I failed you. I mistook quiet for weakness, independence for defiance. I thought the world would never reward someone who didn't demand the spotlight. I thought your path was foolish because it didn't resemble mine. And yet, here you are. A leader. A builder. A daughter I never took the time to understand. I can't undo what's been done. But I want you to know, I see you now. With regret, and with love. Mom. I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time. Let the words sink into every space that had once echoed with dismissal. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply breathed. Deeply. Fully. Sometimes closure doesn't come with a door slamming shut or a final confrontation. Sometimes, it arrives in a quiet envelope, decades late, but no less welcome. Spring came, and with it, new projects, new mints, and a deeper sense of place. I hosted an open house at my apartment, a space filled with memories, sunlight, and the lives I'd helped shape. Felicity brought a pie. My parents came too, sitting shyly in the corner, watching the young interns as if seeing a world they'd never known existed. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't speak of the past. But when they left, my mother hugged me. Not a stiff, obligated gesture, but one that lingered, trembling. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I had found my peace not in their apologies, but in my own becoming. Years later, when my story was published in a journal about women in leadership, I chose the title carefully. Bridges of Silence, What We Build When We're Told We Can't. I wrote not about revenge or vindication, but about perseverance, justice, and the quiet joy of surpassing every expectation without losing your kindness. As the sun set on another long day, I stood on the balcony of my home, overlooking a city I had once feared would swallow me whole. It hadn't. I had learned to rise within it. To shape it with my choices, my strength, my grace. Some bridges, it turns out, don't need rebuilding. Some are better left to burn, so the light can guide you forward. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.